calculator, and Roll Todd himself, Todd Anderson. He's been telling me he wants to make Roll Todd shirts. I like it. I don't know if that's gimmick infringement, but I like it. Cabal Therapy is where we're going to start here for Calcano. Excuse me, for Anderson, targeting Calcano. 2 Delvers, Spell Pierce, Daze, and then a couple of lands. We'll get confirmation on what Todd did name here with the Therapy.
This type of hand from Calcano, so busted on the play.
Anderson named Brainstorm. Clearly Calcano does not have one, which is fortunate for him.
Yeah, I mean, that is a Delver draw. With Calcano on the play, it would be hard for Todd to muster much of anything.
Yeah.
On the draw, though, Todd's got a shot.
Well, the Delvers could not flip.
That's true.
Which is very rare.
Very rare in this format.
Yeah.
Land counts are light. A lot of spells, a lot of cantrips. Hard for them to miss for too long.
Volcanic Island is where Calcano will start. Delver on the way. We're going over to Anderson. Anderson with the Volcanic Island. Looks like a lightning bolt's going to the Delver. Todd will pass the turn back over to Calcano. Calcano will take a draw. We know he's got another Delver in hand. There is a Volcanic Island. Another Delver. And a third Delver. Well, okay then. It's a Delver heavy draw.
Very important for Calcano too is Todd, you see, has Pyroblast in hand. And if Calcano can't get any offense going, Todd's got a huge edge. I mean, we're looking at 4 copies of Dig Through Time in the list for Anderson versus 2 copies for Calcano. On top of that, Todd has some other powerful top-end cards like Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Things lining up beautifully here for Anderson. He's got a Lightning Bolt and a Pyroblast to take care of the other 2 Delvers. Now Calcano's got to rebuild with a Brainstorm. And if a game goes like this from the Grixis control side, you exchange resources, then you get to resolve a cheap Dig Through Time and pull ahead.
Exactly. And you know, there's no guarantee that Anderson has it sewn up from the spot. You know, Calcano can still draw threats, and I think Todd is without a card to really lock the game up. But so far, so good for Anderson.
I mean, this is a world of difference if Calcano's on the play, as you mentioned.
Yes, I mean, especially with the Daze. He just creates so much more leverage with that. Todd would have had to tap out at various spots to try to play removal spells. Calcano would be hitting for a lot, but with Calcano on the draw, he hasn't been able to muster much of an offense yet.
That Daze has done nothing, and it may never do nothing. Calcano with a Deathrite Shaman. But if I'm Todd, I'm on turn 4. I'm at 19. I've got a Dig and a Pyromancer in hand, along with now a Gataxian Probe too. Life is pretty good here.
Yep.
There is young Pyromancer. And now here's Gataxian Probe. Anderson will pay 2 life, but he'll get a token and get a good look at Calcano's hand, assuming this does resolve. A Lightning Bolt going to go after the Pyromancer. There's your Elemental token. And Bolt will resolve. Now Probe will resolve. Calcano, Brainstorm, Ponder. Todd will draw a card from the Gataxian Probe cantrip. Flashback Cabal Therapy. Get rid of that Brainstorm. Leave Calcano with a Ponder.
And all Anderson is trying to do is trade resources.
Yeah.
Get to a spot where his deck has the better draw steps, the more powerful cards to find.
The goal is to exhaust him.
Yeah. You can see, I believe his hand has Kolagon's Command along with Dig Through Time.
Pretty good.
Just going to be playing a 2-for-1 game here.
There's a Ponder for Calcano. See if he wants to keep or shuffle with this. He'll keep it. There's a Delver. And another Deathrite Shaman. Fair enough. Attack for 1.
This is a very, very good turn here for Calcano.
Yeah.
Todd's deck is not flush with sweepers. I mean, he does have to trade 1-for-1 against these threats.
Keep in mind, too, Calcano kept on top with the Ponder.
Yeah.
So he knows what his next 2 draw steps are going to be. So if I'm Anderson, maybe that influences how I want to use his Kolaghan's command.
If I'm Anderson, I'm probably just saying go here, seeing what Calcano reveals to the Delver of Secrets, and then Kolaghan's command. Because if he reveals something like Ponder, for example, inside of his draw step, you can shoot something and make him discard a card, which is really, really juicy. If he's finding something like a counterspell or an instant that you can't really work around with Kolaghan's command, maybe you just fire off the Kolaghan's command straight away.
It is enticing to resolve dig through time when your opponent has no cards in hand.
That is true, but Todd is behind on the board quite a bit.
Interesting.
So with a Young Pyromancer in the graveyard, this is also a reasonable play. I mean, against the Deathrite Shamans, Todd can just try to play this Young Pyromancer, generate a bunch of spells, be able to lock up the ground, then Calcano's clock is just the Deathrite Shamans, and then he has the time for dig through time.
So the card on top was Gataxian Probe. You see Anderson's hand here. Young Pyromancer, Brainstorm, dig through time.
An issue here, though, for Anderson now is Calcano can start transitioning over to attacking his graveyard with the Deathrite Shamans, especially if Calcano draws a second source of black mana. Then that dig through time suddenly becomes a little bit harder to resolve, or at least Todd has to rush it. I think with the setup, he would have liked to play Young Pyromancer, generate some tokens, and then dig through time and cast more spells in the same turn. Now, with Calcano going after his graveyard, that may no longer be an option. He might have to fire off the dig through time a lot sooner than he would have liked.
Misty Rainforest, the draw. See how Anderson elects to move forward here. Again, did a great job of working himself into the mid game here. And now we're starting to work ourselves in the late game. Calcano, worse off in the late game in this matchup, but Deathrite Shaman might give him a way to close.
Yep.
Young Pyromancer's in. Mr. Rainforest will be sacrificed.
And Todd taking a risk here. I think he's going to go for the dig through time, but I feel like he has to. Again, there's no guarantee he gets to use his graveyard to delve for very much longer with Calcano really taking it. On top of that, he just needs to find removal spells to get these Deathrite Shamans off the table. Yeah. So time is becoming an issue.
An elemental token is made, and now dig through time will resolve. So Anderson will take a look at the top 7, take 2 cards with him. Not the best dig through time we've ever seen. I mean, there are cantrips in there.
Yeah, it's nothing that interacts with the board. I think Todd's likely to take the cantrips.
The rest of these cards are going to the bottom. We're going over to Calcano. There's a Misty Rainforest. Calcano does not look thrilled about what's happening right now. It looks like it's time to ride Deathrite Shaman.
Yep. I mean, whatever. I don't know what Calcano's annoyed with himself or something else with, but being able to get a second black source of mana here is excellent.
Yeah.
He really needs it to speed up the clock now. He can activate both Deathrite Shamans a turn, attacking the graveyards.
Another Deathrite Shaman. But he's empty-handed. He's kind of all in at this point. But if Anderson doesn't find answers to the Deathrite Shamans, they can win the game.
Yes. Interesting to see if Calcano offers up a trade here with one of the Deathrites. He can't activate both this turn, and arguably the third Deathrite Shaman is worse for Calcano than the Young Pyromancer on the other side of the table.
Sure.
The issue is if he offers up a trade here and Anderson strings together a bunch of removal spells, Calcano has nothing. And he really needs one of these Deathrite Shamans to stay in play to be able to win the game.
Well, Anderson's going to use a Force of Will on the Deathrite Shaman. Slow that third one down.
Well, now Calcano definitely cannot make an attack here because he can't afford to trade a Deathrite Shaman with a token. And with Todd having 2 tokens in play, suddenly that happens.
Here's a Brainstorm. Jace among the options here. Gataxian Probe, Lightning Bolt. There's a Probe, just to get a token, not willing to pay the life either. Now here's a Lightning Bolt, one more token coming here in just a second. Young Pyromancer starting to run away with it.
Yep.
Not the first time we've seen this. Calcano going to remove Gataxian Probe from the graveyard deal some damage. Token will run into Deathrite Shaman, 3 damage will come through. But this is Anderson trying to turn the corner as fast as possible.
Really painful here for Calcano to be reduced to just the 1 Deathrite Shaman. Having found a way to get a second Underground Sea in play, the second one was doing a lot of work.
Here's a Brainstorm in response to that Lightning Bolt. Another elemental token has been made. Todd will draw 3. Have to put 2 back. We might be seeing him draw Jace. Looks like he's going to keep Dig. Brainstorm done resolving. Pyromancer will bite the dust. Deathrite Shaman on defense here for Calcano, but again, no cards in hand. There is Jace bouncing that. Calcano will get to make a move here with that to remove something. He'll go with the Lightning Bolt.
And you're seeing the issue for Calcano in the matchup. There's a lot of the same cards, but the places where they're different give Anderson a lot more power. And Calcano is faster, but not that much faster.
Yep.
And Todd has a lot of 1-mana interaction to defend himself early on.
Yeah, we saw that in the early stages of this game.
Just bolts and Pyroblast, kept his head above water, and he has more dig through times and Jace in his deck, and Calcano just has random creatures in spots like that.
Yeah, another dig through time and Jace that game. Too much for Calcano to overcome. Todd Anderson's going to win game number 1 here over Christian Calcano. Grixis Control up a game over Grixis Delver, which means we'll take a look at the sideboards now, and we will start with Calcano and his 4 copies of Cabal Therapy, 3 Pyroblast, 2 Surgical Extraction, and a bunch of singletons here in Pithing Needle, Dread of Night, Dark Blast, Ancient Grudge, Sulfuric Vortex, and Vendilion Click.
I like bringing in the Vendilion Click for this matchup. The Dark Blast is also very, very good against Anderson's list. His creature base is actually just Young Pyromancer, Baleful Strix, and Snapcaster Mage. So the 1 Dark Blast is a great play here. I think the 3 copies of Pyroblast coming in as well. I'm not a big fan of Cabal Therapy in this kind of matchup. Todd plays his hand fairly aggressively. I think Cabal Therapy is more for the combo matchups. I also don't know if Calcano can play that disruptive of a game because Anderson's deck is just more powerful as the game progresses.
You just got to be the aggressor, right?
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, the therapies are really good at matchups where the bolts are bad in those kind of combo matchups, but Bolt is fine against Todd. He's got plenty of creatures to target.
What do we see on Todd's side to maybe shore things up in what looks to be a pretty good matchup?
2 Surgical Extractions, a Rakdos Charm, a Kolaghan's Command, a Cabal Therapy, a Sapo's Web, a Pithy Needle, 2 copies of Blue Elemental Blast, a Red Elemental Blast, 2 copies of Sulfur Elemental, and Izzet Staticaster, a Jace the Mind Sculptor, and a Wasteland. I like bringing in the Blasts, the Jace, and the extra Wasteland. Those are the cards I would go to here.
Pretty straightforward stuff.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, these players will shuffle up here for game number 3. Calcano will be on the play. We'll take a look at the Season 4 schedule here on the Open Series. Starts next weekend when we head to Cincinnati.
Yeah, we head to Cincinnati for Modern, then Worcester for Standard. We go to Milwaukee, then Indianapolis. After Indianapolis, we head on over to Atlanta, a Legacy Open Series event in St. Louis, then Modern in Dallas, Standard in Philadelphia. After that, we head to Grand Prix Atlanta. More information on that event as we get a little bit closer. Standard in KC, Legacy back here in New Jersey, a Standard Open Series event in Denver. And then after that, the Season 4 Invitational, Standard and Modern as the Invitational formats with a 2-day $20,000 Standard Open Series event in Las Vegas, Nevada, December 11th through the 13th. And the week after that, the Players Championship, Roanoke, Virginia, Star City Games headquarters, December 19th and 20th.
All of the main events for Season 4, including the main event Standard Open that players are playing in right now, give away the Hop-In Rabbit Master playmat.
There it is.
It is here now, so if you were a fan of Tassiper, we love that one, but it is gone. This is the new one for Season 4. Any main event, get it on Season 4.
Just sign up for one of the 2-day $20,000 Modern or Standard or Legacy Open Series events. Not for the first X people who register, not we mail it to you after the fact, anything like that. No cap on the number of opens you can attend and get these. Just show up, play, get this play mat.
Pretty simple, straightforward stuff as we get ready here for game number 2 between Todd Anderson and Christian Calcano. The calculator, not able to do the math that game.
What I'm interested in is if Todd brings in his extra copy of Kolaghan's Command, because Calcano has a bunch of 2-toughness creatures in the deck, so it's going to be a 2-for-1 in the matchup, either making Calcano discard or Todd getting back one of his creatures. That said, it's a little on the slow side. It's 3 mana against a deck that's packing Wasteland, Daze, and Spell Pierce. So I'm curious to see how much of these kind of powerful but expensive spells is Todd willing to have in his deck.
So Command is interesting to me because, you know, as we work ourselves later into the game, it'll be good. And I think it was pretty good that game for him.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, but it is, 3 mana is a lot.
Yes.
You're working. He's on the draw. You're working your way to Daze territory there.
To me, it's an issue of, you know, you can afford to have a couple 3-mana spells in the deck. Once you start having a bunch of them, you start running into draws where you fold to Wasteland, or you fold to Daze, or you die with spells in your hand. But if you have a couple 3-mana spells, a couple 4-mana spells, you can probably afford that on most draws. As long as you have enough chiefs up in the deck to interact early on, those 3 and 4 mana plays like Kolaghan's Command, Jace the Mind Sculptor, they can be the nail in the coffin.
Well, game number 2 about to be underway here as we are in round number 11 of our Season 3 Invitational. It's our 3rd round of Legacy here this morning. One more after it, and then we shift to Standard. Calcano very quickly mulliganing in that hand. Did not like what he saw. We'll see if Anderson will keep. And it looks as though he will. Is Calcano going to take a look at 6? He's happy. It's a Delver. We're underway here. Anderson going to go for a bolt on the Delver. That'll work just fine. Calcano now with another Delver. Very reminiscent of game number 1. Anderson with a Baleful Strix.
Great response here.
Jeez. Calcano going to take a look at the top card. Delver not flipping, but Calcano will take the card that he's drawn.
And you can see Calcano looking at a Pyroblast in his hand. He can get rid of the Strix, but it's just such a painful exchange this early, especially with Calcano being on the play, having mulliganed. Just going to run out of resources to work with if he makes exchanges like that.
And that's exactly what Todd wants to have happen.
Yep.
And Calcano's just going to pass the turn and say go. There's a Misty Rainforest for Anderson. He'll start by sacrificing. I thought about playing a spell beforehand, but he'd like to get the fetching out of the way first.
Yeah, also just wants to know if there's a Stifle over there.
Yeah.
And that could change what spell he wants to play this turn, how he wants to sequence things.
Volcanic Island is the weapon of choice here for Anderson. There's a young Pyromancer. That'll work. Anderson with a Pyroblast in hand. He'll play Gitaxian Probe. That'll trigger young Pyromancer, bring an elemental token along with it. Calcano doesn't want to show his hand, but he'll show 2 Brainstorms on the Pyroblast and a Gurmag Angler. Angler not looking good this game.
No. And, you know, there's only so much fixing of the hand Calcano can do with those Brainstorms when he's so light on total cards.
Oh, Baleful Strix feel a little
Whoa.
frisky.
Not a good sign for Calcano if Anderson's willing to make that attack this early.
No, not at all. Not at all. Todd still with that Pyroblast in hand.
I think Todd may Pyroblast the Delver in response to this end of turn Brainstorm. He knows currently he can get away with it. And the only way Calcano can really mess with him is by brainstorming in response by cracking his fetch land. At that point, he's without a shuffle for his brainstorms.
Yeah,
Todd's happy with that as well.
You're very happy with that. Calcano going to take a look at 3 cards. He'll have to put 2 back, of course. Maybe fetch them away.
And you can see the rest of Todd's hand. He's got Kolaghan's Command alongside Jace the Mind Sculptor, and that's just how you draw this up. Plenty of cheap interaction early on in the game. He's actually ahead on the board.
Yeah.
It's the 3rd turn he's ahead on the board, and he's got a lot of power left over while Calcano is struggling to assemble much of anything.
I would argue Todd is ahead everywhere here.
Yes. Cards in hand, board presence, mana, inevitability. He's got every edge right now.
I guess the only place is life points that he is, in theory, behind.
We'll get back to it next turn.
Yeah.
See how that looks.
Calcano gonna go down to 18, excuse me. Volcanic Island. Yeah, when the games are drawn up like this, then you don't mind the Kolaghan Command cost 3 mana.
Yeah, when Todd has enough early interaction to get out of the first couple turns, and you know he has Bolt, Pyroblast, Baleful Strix, Young Pyromancer to all fill that obligation, then those 3 and 4 mana spells become really, really good.
There's Wasteland. What's the follow-up here for Calcano? Deathrite Shaman. He'll pass the turn back. Anderson will draw. Picked up a copy of Volcanic Island, but he's without black mana now. Looks like he is happy with Young Pyromancer trading with Deathrite Shaman.
If the Deathrite Shaman leaves the table, then suddenly the tokens are free to attack. Still a one-for-one trade. I mean, I know Young Pyromancer is more powerful, but Calcano could certainly use the mana.
Well, he's not going to block, so he takes the 3. There's a Ponder. That will resolve. So, Calcano will take a look at the top 3 cards. See if he finds something he likes here.
Although now Todd's hand is kind of in a weird spot. He's got Jace the Mind Sculptor, but he knows Calcano has a Pyroblast. He's got the Kolaghan's Command, no black mana to cast it. So right now he's sort of working with what's on the board.
Take a look at Anderson's hand here. 2 Jaces.
Yep.
4th land and Kolaghan's Command.
That's a powerful hand,
yes.
But that's also something that plays pretty poorly into Pyroblast until Todd can find black mana to cast Kolaghan's Command first. I think Todd is still in the driver's seat in this game, but Calcano with Pyroblast has a little bit of game.
Deathrite's going to go removing, it appears. There goes the Misty Rainforest. There's the Angler. That'll lock up the ground. Now we head back Anderson's way. Calcano's got some fight left in him here.
Yep.
Ponder the draw.
And Todd may just try to brute force his way through this Pyroblast. He may cast Jace this turn and then Jace the next turn. The other way is to ponder, look for black mana to cast Kolaghan's Command, and then do the brute forcing through the Pyroblast.
Elemental token from the Young Pyromancer, and now Ponder is resolving.
This is not a shabby collection of cards Todd is looking at. It looks like another mana and a blue Elemental Blast.
Yep.
That could set up a line of play next turn where he casts Jace with blue Elemental Blast back up for the Pyroblast he knows about. It does mean he's without black mana, so the Kolaghan's Command is still offline for a little while, but if he gets Jace to resolve, I mean, look at Calcano's board. He can't really handle unsummons at this point.
Yeah.
It's very hard to recast the Gurmag Angler.
Yep. There's another Young Pyromancer. Pass the turn back.
So I think that's the line of play that Todd's taking here. He's probably going to take the mana for next turn, have 5 lands in play, try to cast Jace with blue Elemental Blast back up. Also, that's a tongue twister.
Oh, you did just fine.
Not the first time. I realized as the words were escaping my mouth that it's a little complicated.
Calcano with a Delver. Pass the turn back. Anderson, 2 Jaces, Kolaghan's Command in hand, drew his copy of blue Elemental Blast. He'll play the first Jace. Just jam it into a counter spell.
Yep.
Pass the turn back, and next turn's the real payoff.
Yes.
Here's a Brainstorm for Calcano.
You can see Calcano's threats in the matchup do not line up very well.
Yeah.
Gurmag Angler against Baleful Strix. Some creatures on the ground against Young Pyromancer. It's a tough way to try to do it.
2 cards back on top there for Calcano. He'll take a draw, flip that Delver via Brainstorm. As you see, Baleful Strix is just such an annoyance.
Yeah. I mean, it's painful, but Calcano may have to consider, using even something like Pyroblast on the Strix to be able to free up the Angler and the Insectile Aberration to make an attack.
Just trying to get something going.
Yeah.
Especially when you know that your opponent, here's a Wasteland. Okay. When you know your opponent has Jace in hand.
Yeah.
Here's an attempt at Jace again. Nope.
So that Wasteland was very, very good for Calcano. Otherwise, Todd had to set up here with 5 mana and Blue Blast. And I don't think Chase would have been beaten in this spot, given what all the other stuff Anderson has going on here.
Calcano considering if he's got a way to get the Strix off the table, we're getting real interesting. Here's a Brainstorm.
At that point, he could really make an attack with, certainly with the Insectile Aberration, that's free. There's no flying creatures on the Anderson side of the table. I think the Gurmag Angler also becomes eligible to attack because Anderson would have to risk a block involving all of his tokens and one of the Young Pyromancers. So even in the worst case scenario, you clear out a lot of his board.
Deathray Shaman's going to go removing something. He's got a Young Pyromancer of his own. Well, what we don't know is what Anderson's top card is. It's a good Magic card. He'll start with Blue Elemental Blast to take down Young Pyromancer. That'll bring him 2 tokens.
Yeah, as long as Anderson has the Young Pyromancer advantage, the longer and longer the game goes, the bigger and bigger his advantage gets.
And now he's digging and bringing more elementals to the party. And this is where things get very difficult for the calculator. Dig through time resolving. Anderson's going to get to take 2 premium cards from that 7-card stack. Another Baleful Strix in there, even though there is no black mana.
He's got Red Blast, Blue Blast. He's got a lot of really good options here.
If he really wants that black mana, he can take that Scalding Tarn.
Yeah, he can't really take the Strix without taking the source of black mana. Those feel like they are a pair, if he wants to do that. He can also just take some pure value here with, Cantrip plus Blast, 2 blasts, Young Pyromancer with a blast. A lot of good sequences here for Todd.
He's found 2 cards he's happy with.
Any reasonable selection of cards is going to pull him really far ahead here.
There's a Tarn. Yeah, no attacks to be had. Both players just kind of building up a board, but Todd's doing a much better job of it.
Yeah, Calcano can kind of sit back on the Angler for a little while here because Todd's not going to offer up an attack with the Young Pyromancers while that's the case. But Calcano can't sit here all day.
Polluted Delta will be sacrificed.
It's pretty easy for Todd's deck to go cantrip, kill a thing, turn after turn, and when all those sequences result in 6 tokens being in play when it's all said and done, only so many turns you can take like that.
See the smile there on Calcano's face. He knows he's in some trouble, but he's going to cast the Ponder to look for some help. Anderson weighing his options. He's going to Pyroblast the Delver. 2 more tokens here for Todd. And now the Ponder? Yeah, well, feel free.
So this lets the Strix get in there at the minimum.
Nice. Time to start hacking away.
And with Calcano on 12, I think the tokens will probably start attacking next turn.
Yeah.
I think it would be a slightly different equation if Calcano did not tap the Tropical Island. If he was threatening getting 2 with the Deathrite Shamans, maybe the math is bad for Todd to be swinging in with the tokens. Maybe not. But with him not having a green mana up, I think the race becomes very good for Anderson if he just starts attacking with everything except the Young Pyromancers.
I might even feel good about attacking with Young Pyromancers.
Yeah, depending on what exactly he draws,
Yeah.
it could still be fine to attack with that as well.
Calcano going to go digging, perhaps? And those are the cards that he'll be exiling for Gurmag Angler. Never mind. Yeah. Well, to Anderson, we're going to go. Angler looking very poor this game, unfortunately, for Calcano.
Well, Todd's drawn a Bolt, so that now might be enough for him to just start bashing with everything.
Yeah, you see he's lining up the creatures, see how much damage would be dealt. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, that's plenty to get the job done. Todd Anderson's going to win this game and match over Christian Calcano 2-0. Grixis Control will take care of Grixis Delver. And for Anderson, a player who is a former Invitational champion and top 8 at our Season 1 Invitational this year in the Open Series, he's well on his way to doing it again.
Yep. Great matchup there. Played very, very well. Right mixture of cards he needed. Had some good stuff early. Had some cards like Young Pyromancer to bridge the gap until he was able to get to cards like Kolaghan's Command, Jace the Mind Sculptor. And Calcano never really had the draws that allowed him to, get something into play, have a daze, wastelands you. You know the type of Delver draws you need to overcome decks that are playing things like Baleful Strix, Kolaghan's Command, Chase the Mind Sculptor, alongside Lightning Bolts and Pyroblast to interact early in the game.
You got to just love the matchup there if you're Todd. I mean, you're basically the same deck, but Todd's the control deck. He gets to go longer. He's got more digs. He's got more interaction. And as we saw in the opening turns of the games,